Today, I'm going to tell you the incredible story of Elena Carter, a quiet maid who tried to hide her broken arm out of fear. But the Mafia boss noticed something she was trying to conceal, and when he finally saw her injury, everything changed. By morning, 15 men had vanished, and the city learned what happens when you hurt the wrong woman. Just a minute. Just need a minute, Kate Bennett whispers to herself, pressing a trembling hand against her ribs. She has to calm down. She has to stop her hands from shaking. The taste of blood lingers on her lip, and her dark blue evening gown, the one she'd spent 2 months of savings on for tonight's gala, is a ruined mess. One of the thin straps hangs torn, and an ugly reddish stain streaks the satin at her hip. She doesn't want to think about what it is. She cannot go back out there like this. Can't let anyone see her broken and bleeding. The Blackwell family doesn't tolerate problems. They expect perfection. Kate has worked for the Blackwells for almost 4 years, climbing her way up from a temp assistant to the event coordinator for one of the most powerful families in New York City. And she is finally, close to a promotion to senior coordinator. Close to earning enough to keep her mother in proper care without drowning in debt. Close to proving she's more than just the poor girl from Queens who got lucky landing a job in a world of billionaires and kingmakers. Kate dabs at her split lip with a crumpled tissue, but the bleeding won't stop. A hot tear slips down her cheek and she angrily wipes it away. Not now. She can't fall apart now. Just a few more minutes hidden in this little storage room and she'll pull herself together enough to slip out quietly. Avoid any scenes. The door suddenly swings open behind her. Kate spins around, her breath catching in her throat. I'm sorry, she starts in a rasp, an apology instinctively tumbling out. She expects maybe a colleague or a catering staff member. Instead, a tall, broad-shouldered figure fills the doorway. Damien Blackwell. He stands there in the dim light, one hand still on the door handle. Damien Blackwell in the flesh, staring at her with an expression she can't quite read. He's not just any guest, he's the host, the eldest son of the Blackwell dynasty, the man people whisper about in careful tones, the one whose name appears in the papers linked to words like alleged and investigation and persons of interest, only for nothing ever to come of it. 6'3" of tailored perfection and barely leashed violence, dressed in a black tuxedo that probably cost more than her car. His bow tie hangs loose around his neck, the top button of his crisp white shirt undone. One of the only signs he's been at a party all evening. His black hair is immaculately styled back, not a strand out of place, and the cool blue of his eyes is fixed on Kate. She's spoken to Mr. Blackwell only a handful of times over the years. Always brief, polite exchanges in passing. He's nearly 40, with a strong, clean-cut jaw, and features that look carved from marble under the harsh overhead light. People say he took over the family's business empire after his father died under mysterious circumstances over a decade ago. People say a lot of things about him, none of which they dare say to his face. Kate has never seen him up close like this, and he's never looked at her the way he is right now. Absolute silence, absolute stillness. Damien's pale eyes flick over her, taking in every detail. Her torn gown, the bruise she can feel swelling on her cheek, the blood still trickling from her lip. His expression doesn't change, and somehow, that steady, unreadable calm is more terrifying than if he had come in shouting, "Mr. Blackwell, Kate begins, voice shaking as she grasps for an explanation, any excuse that might make this less disastrous than it looks. Who? His voice is quiet, almost gentle, as if he's asking a casual question about the weather. But that single syllable hits her like a gunshot. It holds an authority that pins her to the spot. Her spine straightens instinctively, despite the bolt of pain that lances through her bruised ribs. It's nothing, she says quickly, forcing the words out in a rush. She can't lose this job. She can't. I slipped in the parking garage. I'm fine, really. I just needed a moment to clean up before... Kate. Her name. Just one word, but it stops her rambling in its tracks. It sounds different in his mouth, low and dark and dangerous. He steps into the storage closet and with a soft click, pushes the door shut behind him. Now it's just the two of them in the small space, the distant bass of the gala's music throbbing through the walls. Kate presses back against a shelf of table linens, suddenly hyper-aware of how alone they are. I'm going to ask you once more, Damien says, enunciating each word with deadly calm. Who the fuck did this to you? Kate flinches. She has never heard Damien Blackwell curse before. In all the perfectly orchestrated events she's worked for his family, He was always a portrait of cold, controlled civility. Seeing him now, uttering that word through clenched teeth, is like glimpsing a crack in a granite statue. Something is slipping through that mask of control. Something lethal. I can't, she stammers, her voice barely above a whisper. Panic claws at her throat. She tries again, her plea tumbling out fast and desperate. Please, Mr. Blackwell. I can't afford to lose this job. My mother, she's sick, and the medical bills. Answer the question, Kate. His tone never rises, but it hardens, leaving no room for defiance. She shakes her head frantically. It was an accident, she insists weakly, hearing how unconvincing she sounds. Her heartbeat is a frantic drum in her ears. I tripped and... Damien moves closer, and Kate's words die on her tongue. He's only a foot away now, towering over her. She should be afraid, hell, she is afraid. Not of what he might do to her, but of the look in his eyes. That glacial calm, that razor-thin restraint. This man has a reputation that makes seasoned politicians and Wall Street CEOs avert their gaze in his presence. Yet right now he reaches out slowly, almost gently, as if approaching a frightened animal. Kate doesn't even realize she's trembling until his hand comes up to her chin. 2 fingertips beneath her jaw, tilting her face up toward the light. She sucks in a sharp breath. His touch is surprisingly soft, careful, the kind of touch you'd use on something fragile. He surveys the damage with a clinical, simmering fury that vibrates in the air between them. That bruise on your cheekbone, he says quietly, is from a fist. His thumb hovers just shy of the purpling mark under her eye, not quite touching her skin. The split lip. His eyes flick down to her mouth. That's from a ring, I'd guess. Whoever hit you was wearing one. Kate's lips part in astonishment. How could he possibly know that? He doesn't stop. His gaze travels to her left arm, where faint reddish fingerprints are blooming just above her elbow. She hadn't even noticed those yet. Someone grabbed you here, hard enough to leave marks. His voice drops even lower. And judging by the way you're holding your side, I'd say you have at least 1 cracked rib. Possibly 2. Kate's breath catches. She wants to shrink away, to hide from those piercing eyes that see too much. But Damien's fingers remain under her chin, gentle yet firm, keeping her in place. Tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a mix of pain and humiliation. Hey, how do you know all that? She whispers, voice trembling. I know what violence looks like. Damien's reply is soft, almost a confession. A muscle ticks in his jaw. I've seen it. I've dealt it. His thumb moves, just barely stroking along the uninjured side of her jaw in a gesture so tender it steals her breath. I know exactly what it looks like when someone tries to take something that isn't theirs. Now. He meets her eyes again, and she feels pinned by that steely blue gaze. I'm not asking as your employer, or as the host of that damn gala. I'm asking as the man who is going to set this right. Each word vibrates with tightly coiled wrath. Who did this to you, Kate? The contrast between the feather-light touch on her face and the deadly promise in his voice cracks something inside her wide open. All night she's been holding herself together by fraying threads, through the shock and fear and pain, through cleaning herself up alone in this closet, through the desperate calculation of how to pretend everything was fine, so she wouldn't lose what little she's fought for. But now Damien Blackwell is looking at her like her pain matters, like the fact someone hurt her is not a mere inconvenience, but an offense. Like it's personal. Kate's resistance crumbles. The words pour out of her in a shuddering breath before she can think to stop them. Preston Caldwell, she admits, voice quavering with a mixture of anger and relief at finally letting the truth escape. It was Preston and a couple of his buddies. Her stomach turns at saying his name. He cornered me in the loading bay after I stepped out to take a phone call. She breaks off, swallowing the surge of nausea. He asked me to go somewhere with him. I said no. He didn't like that answer. Damien's thumb stills on her jaw. For a heartbeat, he's utterly motionless. The air seems to go out of the room. Even the muffled music from outside fades beneath the thunderous silence. Kate can feel the change in him. Something dangerous unfurling behind his eyes like a dark tide rising. He releases her chin and steps back, face unreadable and frighteningly calm once more. Without a word, Damien reaches into his jacket and pulls out his phone. Kate watches, heart pounding, as he presses a number on speed dial. "Frank," he says quietly, his voice controlled steel. "I need you at the South Service Corridor. Now. Bring the first aid kit from my office. Yes, the big one." He pauses, eyes never leaving Kate's face. "And Frank, hurry." He ends the call and slips the phone back into his inner pocket in one fluid motion. Kate realizes she's clutching the edge of the shelf behind her so hard her knuckles have gone white. Everything hurts. Her ribs, her face, her pride. But none of it eclipses the tumult of fear and gratitude and bewilderment swirling inside her chest as she looks at the man standing before her. "Preston Caldwell," she whispers, wiping at her eyes with the heel of her hand. She suddenly remembers. Preston isn't just some trust fund creep. He's the son of Senator Richard Caldwell, one of New York's most influential politicians. The Caldwells can ruin people without breaking a sweat. Preston himself had hissed as much in her ear as he. "Don't think about that." Kate's blood runs cold. "If Damien goes after him—" "Mr. Blackwell, listen," she says quickly, voice cracking. "Preston's father is Senator Caldwell. He has connections, powerful friends. If you get involved, if this turns into a thing, it could be a nightmare. He told me if I said anything, he'd make sure I never work in this city again." Damien's jaw flexes, a flash of barely constrained rage darting across his eyes. But when he speaks, his tone is almost gentle. "It already is a thing," he says, cutting through her frantic words. "The moment that entitled little bastard laid a hand on you, it became my business. I can't ask you to—" Kate begins. "You're not asking." Damien's voice is firm. He shrugs out of his tuxedo jacket in one smooth motion. Before she can protest, he drapes it around her shoulders, covering her torn dress. The jacket is warm from his body heat, the expensive fabric carrying a subtle scent of his cologne. Smoked cedar and something darker, dangerous underneath. It hangs heavy on Kate's smaller frame, but the weight is strangely comforting. Her fingers clutch the front of it closed, holding it tightly against herself. "You're going to sit down now," Damien continues, the quiet authority in his tone allowing no argument. "Frank will be here in a minute to check that nothing's broken. Then you're going home. The gala is over for you." Kate's lips part in protest. The gala? She's supposed to be working right now, overseeing the final hours of the event. If she abandons her post, but "You've done enough for one night," he interjects, brooking no disagreement. For the first time since he entered the room, a flicker of something that might be concern passes over his face. "Take the next few days off, with pay. I'll handle everything here." Kate's heart is pounding. She clutches his jacket around herself. None of this makes any sense. Damien Blackwell is the ruthless prince of New York high society. Feared, respected, obeyed. He does not comfort his employees. He certainly doesn't throw himself into their personal nightmares and offer to handle things. "Mr. Blackwell?" She starts, uncertain, unsteady. "Damien," he corrects, his tone softening just a fraction. He takes a step closer again, close enough that the heat of him seeps through the jacket now wrapped around her. She has to tilt her chin up to hold his gaze. "When I'm about to break half a dozen laws on someone's behalf," he says, voice low, "I think we can dispense with formalities. Use my name." Kate stares up at him, speechless. Her mind is reeling, and it's all happening too fast to fully process. But one thing she knows with startling clarity: she trusts him in this moment more than she's ever trusted anyone. And that should scare her, probably. Maybe it will, later, when the adrenaline crashes. Right now, though, with Damien Blackwell's jacket around her, his promise hanging in the air and fury burning in his eyes on her behalf, all she feels is safe. A knock at the door precedes the arrival of Frank, the Blackwell family's longtime head of security. His silver hair and composed expression give nothing away as he steps inside the cramped room with a leather first aid kit in hand. His sharp gaze sweeps over Kate's battered face, her wrapped form in Damien's jacket, and the way Damien is standing protectively close. Frank's jaw tightens subtly, but he schools his features back to neutrality in an instant. "Miss Bennett," he greets with professional courtesy and a nod. "May I?" He kneels beside her where she perches on a low stool that Damien dragged over for her. Kate nods, clutching the jacket around her like a shield. Damien backs up just enough to give Frank room, but he doesn't leave. He looms only a step away, arms folded across his chest, those stormy eyes never straying from Kate. Frank works efficiently, fingers probing gently along Kate's side. Even with care, she hisses in pain when he presses on a particularly tender spot. 2 cracked ribs, Frank confirms after a moment, his tone grim. He inspects the bruises on her arms and the cut on her lip. Contusions consistent with assault. The facial laceration is shallow but will be painful. She needs ice on that cheek and plenty of rest. She needs justice, Damien murmurs, voice like distant thunder. Kate's heart lurches. Her hands start to shake again. Please, she whispers, looking between the 2 men, Frank with his impassive, sympathetic face, and Damien, whose expression has turned to carved granite. I'm begging you, Damien, don't make this worse. Preston, he said if I told anyone, he'd destroy my reputation. Make sure I never work again. He'll say I was lying, that I tried to trap him, or... Her voice breaks as tears threaten once more. I can't lose everything I've worked for because I said no to the wrong man. At her words, Damien's stance shifts. He pushes away from the wall and crouches down directly in front of her, so that she no longer has to crane her neck to meet his eyes. The movement is unhurried, almost gentle, as if he's trying not to spook her. Even kneeling, he exudes coiled power, a panther at rest for the moment. Kate presses her back against the shelf behind her, overwhelmed by the intensity radiating from him. But Damien only reaches out and takes her hand in both of his. His palms are warm and steady, engulfing her smaller, trembling fingers. Kate, he says softly, and in that single syllable, there's something she's never heard from him before. Tenderness. Do you know how many events you've coordinated for my family? The question catches her off guard. She blinks, trying to shift mental gears. I'm not sure, she stammers. Her mind feels sluggish, mired in fear and adrenaline. You started with us 3 years and 8 months ago, Damien says, a faint hint of wryness in his tone. In that time you've run, dozens of galas, fundraisers, parties? Let's say around 30. 37, Kate hears herself whisper. It's true. She's kept count. Each successful event was another bullet point on her resume, another step up in the world. A ghost of a smile flickers across Damien's lips. 37 events. And do you know how many times I've seen you smile at people who didn't deserve your kindness? How many times you bent over backward for guests who were rude or dismissive, never once losing your patience? Kate doesn't know how to answer. She glances down at his hands holding hers, so solid and sure. No one's ever noticed those things about her job before, certainly no Blackwell. Every single time, Damien continues, his voice low. No matter what was thrown at you, you were professional, unflappable. You have this light, this strength in you, and despite what everyone probably told you about me, his lips twist in a bitter half-smile. You never once looked at me with fear. Not like everyone else does. She looks up sharply at that. It's true she was always careful around him but fearful. She'd been too busy making sure events ran smoothly to dwell on the ominous aura that made other staff scurry away. And maybe, foolishly, she assumed his cold reputation only applied to people who crossed him, which she never intended to do. They're all afraid of me, Kate, he says quietly. Every person in my orbit. Some hide it better than others, but it's there. The flinch, the averted eyes, the yes sir that comes just a little too fast. They should be afraid. The edge of darkness in those words reminds her exactly who and what he is. But then Damien shakes his head, squeezing her hand gently. You looked at me like I was just another man in a suit. Like I was normal. He huffs a breath that might be a self-deprecating laugh. Hell, you even scolded me once for nearly knocking over a centerpiece while I was on my phone. A flicker of memory surfaces through her haze of worry. Last year's winter gala, Damien had been stalking through the ballroom during setup, distracted on a call, and he'd jostled a table. Kate, thinking only of the expensive floral arrangement wobbling precariously, had admonished without thinking. Careful. Please, that vase is older than both of us combined. He'd raised an eyebrow and apologized curtly. At the time, she'd nearly died of embarrassment, realizing she'd snapped at the billionaire signing her paychecks. Now a soft, choked laugh escapes her at the absurd recollection. You remember that? I remember everything about you, Damien says, and the quiet sincerity in his voice steals the air from her lungs. You made me want things I thought I'd forgotten how to want. His gaze roams over her face, as if drinking in every bruise, every tear, committing them to memory like a debt to be paid. And now some worthless piece of trash thinks he can hurt you, can steal that fearlessness from your eyes, and walk away untouched. The muscle in his jaw ticks again. That is an unforgivable offense. Tears slip free before she can stop them, rolling down Kate's cheeks. But she isn't crying from pain or fear now. It's hearing him speak this way, about her. Like she means something, like she matters. Damien releases one of her hands to reach up and brush a tear away with his thumb. His touch is infinitely careful, reverent even. I can't change what he did to you, he says softly. I wish to God I'd gotten to you before it happened. But I swear to you, Kate, I will make sure Preston Caldwell and his friends never hurt you again. They will never hurt anyone again. A small, broken sound escapes her, half sob, half sigh. How? It's all she can manage to ask. The single-word question collapsing under the weight of everything she's feeling. Damien rises fluidly to his feet, still holding her hand. He draws her up with him. For a moment, she wobbles, her legs nearly buckling from exhaustion and injury. But his arm slips around her back, supporting her with effortless strength. Kate finds herself standing far closer to him than propriety should allow, her fingers braced against the solid wall of his chest through his vest and shirt. She can feel the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her palm. Do you trust me? He asks quietly. Kate swallows, staring up into his face. The rational part of her should scream no. She barely knows this man beyond workplace pleasantries and ominous rumors. But after tonight, after he's held her while she cried, after he's shown more concern for her than anyone has in years, her heart drowns out reason. I don't know, she whispers honestly. Should I? A shadow of something like hurt flickers in his eyes, but Damien nods, accepting her answer. Probably not, he admits. I'm not a man who earns trust easily, but I'm asking for it anyway. His hand is warm around hers, his other arm a steady band supporting her back. Kate realizes she isn't frightened of him. Not one bit. In fact, in his arms is the only place that doesn't hurt. He's waiting, tension in the set of his shoulders as if bracing for her rejection. She takes a shaky breath. Yes. Damien's eyes widen almost imperceptibly. Yes, I trust you, Kate clarifies, her voice steadier this time. In this moment, she truly does. She shouldn't. By all accounts, Damien Blackwell is more dangerous than the man who attacked her. But she does. He's dangerous, yes, but not to her. Never to her. Something in his expression softens, a tightness she hadn't realized he carried easing from his face. Relief. He dips his head in a slight nod. Good. Frank clears his throat gently, reminding them he's still present. Kate flushes, realizing how closely she's pressed to Damien and pulling back a fraction. Damien reluctantly lets her step out of his supporting embrace, though he keeps a hand hovering at her lower back, as if ready to catch her if she sways. I'll drive Miss Bennett home, sir, Frank says, rising to his feet. He snaps the first aid kit closed. She should ice her injuries and get some sleep. I'll also arrange for a doctor to visit her tomorrow for a follow-up. Thank you, Frank, Damien says. The older man gives a short, respectful nod, though Kate doesn't miss the subtle, knowing glance he passes between her and Damien. A ghost of a smile touches Frank's eyes. He almost looks satisfied. As Frank steps out to pull the car around, Damien turns back to Kate. His hand finds hers again, fingers lacing together briefly before he seems to catch himself. He gently lets go, but not before running his thumb across her knuckles in a slow caress that sends an involuntary shiver up her spine. Take tomorrow off, he says. Take the whole week, in fact. However long you need. Damien, she begins, but he cuts her off with a slight shake of his head. Your only job right now is to recover, he says firmly. Understand? She nods, overwhelmed by the protectiveness in his voice. He studies her for a moment, and she could swear worry flickers there. I'll have someone cover your duties for the remainder of the gala. Don't give it another thought. And Kate, your mother's medical expenses? He pauses meaningfully. Consider them taken care of. Kate's eyes widen. What? She must have misheard. No, Damien, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. His tone is almost chiding. I want to. It's the least I can do. You can't just... She bites off the protest. Of course he can. He absolutely can. And a tiny part of her, the exhausted, desperate part that has been losing sleep for months, wondering how to pay for her mom's next round of treatment, feels an immense weight lift off her shoulders at his words. I don't know how to thank you, she whispers. A muscle in his cheek twitches, and something like anger flashes in his eyes. Not at her, but at the situation. Don't thank me, he says, voice low. Just get better, and come back to me when you're ready. There's a finality in his tone. He's declared how it's going to be, and that's that. Kate should probably be annoyed by the high-handedness. She's an independent woman after all. But right now, all she feels is grateful. Grateful and safe. Frank returns then, announcing the car is ready. Damien's jacket still hangs around Kate's shoulders. She starts to shrug it off, but he stops her with a hand on the lapel. Keep it, he says softly. For now, Kate nods wordless. Wrapped in his jacket, she allows Frank to guide her out of the storage room. Just before she crosses the threshold, she glances back at Damien. He stands in the half-light, fists clenched at his sides, jaw tight. The storm in his eyes promises retribution, and for a brief second, she almost feels sorry for Preston Caldwell. Damien meets her gaze. You don't need to worry about anything, he tells her, calm and deadly. When you come back, they won't be a problem. None of them will be. Kate believes him. Outside, Frank escorts her through hushed back corridors and out into the cool night. The limousine waiting by the service entrance is sleek and black, windows tinted to obsidian. Ever the gentleman, Frank helps her into the back seat and then slips into the driver's spot up front. The drive to her apartment passes in silence. Kate presses the cold pack Frank gave her against her swollen cheek and tries to process the whirlwind of the last hour. Pain throbs through her body with every beat of her heart, but she feels strangely numb. Or perhaps simply drained. So much fear, panic, and adrenaline dumped into her system in such a short span. Now she's just hollowed out. Hollowed out, but not alone. She can still feel the reassuring weight of Damien's jacket around her, the faint scent of him clinging to the fine wool. As the city lights blur by, she closes her eyes and thinks of the way he held her hand, the tremor in his voice when she said she trusted him, how his rage melted into relief. Weird. How in the worst night of her life, she had never felt safer than in that storage closet with a man everyone calls a monster. At her apartment building in Queens, Frank insists on walking her all the way to her door on the 3rd floor. He does a sweep of her tiny one-bedroom unit with the tactical efficiency of a Secret Service agent, checking every room, closet, and even the fire escape latch. Satisfied that she's safe, he scribbles a phone number on a card and leaves it on her kitchen counter. If you need anything, he says, meeting her eyes meaningfully. Anything at all, call. Day or night. Kate clutches the card and nods. Thank you, Frank, for everything. He offers a kindly smile. Get some rest, Miss Bennett. With that, he sees himself out, locking her door behind him. And then Kate is alone. The silence of her apartment is deafening after the chaos of the night. She stands in her living room, unsure what to do with herself. Her body aches fiercely now. The painkillers Frank gave her must be wearing off. Carefully, she shrugs off Damien's jacket and drapes it over the back of her sofa. Immediately, she feels soddily cold, bereft of its warmth and scent. After a second, she pulls it back down and wraps it around her shoulders like a blanket. Moving gingerly, she sinks onto the couch in the dark. The city sounds drift through her thin curtains, distant sirens, a car horn, the hum of life continuing as if her world hadn't just been upended. She should be horrified by what happened in that loading bay, and part of her is, some deeper part that hasn't fully processed it is screaming beneath the surface. But overriding it is a sense of peace, because Preston won't get away with it. Damien will make sure of that. Her gaze falls on her phone, which she'd tossed onto the coffee table. She hasn't even looked at it since just before Preston cornered her. There are missed calls from co-workers, a few worried texts from a friend she was supposed to meet for drinks after the gala. She mentally adds that to the list of apologies she'll have to make. But nothing from any number she recognizes as Damien's. She wonders if he'll even call her directly, or if all communication will go through his staff like usual. She doesn't have the energy to dwell on it. Eventually, exhaustion overtakes adrenaline, and Kate drifts into a fitful doze right there on the couch, Damien's jacket pulled tight around her, and the ice pack melting forgotten on the coffee table. At 2:13 in the morning, her phone rings and jolts her awake. The bright screen shows the number for her mother's nursing facility. Kate's heart leaps into her throat. They never call this late unless something is wrong. Fumbling, she answers with a trembling hand. "Hello?" "Yes, this is Kate." "Miss Bennett," comes a warm female voice she recognizes as the night supervisor. "I apologize for the late call. I just wanted to inform you that as of about an hour ago, your mother's outstanding account balance has been paid in full." Kate sits up straight, a bolt of shock giving her energy. I'm sorry, what?" "Your mother's care expenses," the supervisor says cheerfully. "Roughly 6 months' worth of payments completely covered. And we have received documentation of an open-ended trust to ensure all her future care is paid for as well, indefinitely." It takes Kate a moment to find her voice. Her thoughts race. A trust? It's like something out of a dream. There must be a mistake, she manages weakly. "By whom? Who paid it?" The supervisor hesitates. "The donor wished to remain anonymous. That's all I know, I'm afraid. But everything is above board. We received certified confirmation from a reputable law firm. I can forward you the documentation tomorrow. I just thought you'd like to know right away, given the circumstances." The woman's tone turns gentle. "I'm aware you've been struggling with the payments. This is wonderful news, Miss Bennett. Your mother's treatments and accommodations will continue without any issues now." Wonderful news. Yes, wonderful. Kate thanks her numbly and ends the call. The phone slips from her fingers onto the couch. Anonymous, her ass. She knows exactly who is responsible. Damien Blackwell keeps his promises. A choked sob escapes her, and she claps a hand over her mouth. It's too much. In the span of hours, her life has been knocked off its axis, and here he is, single-handedly setting it right, piece by piece. Kate doesn't sleep for the rest of the night. She alternates between tears and stunned, disbelieving laughter. Every time her ribs throb or her bruises sting, she's reminded it's real, that tonight happened. But so did Damien. He happened. He stormed into her life with fury and vengeance in his eyes, and decided she mattered enough to burn the world for. By the time the first pale streaks of dawn glow through her window, Kate is on her third cup of coffee, exhaustion draping her limbs like lead. She gave up on trying to rest. Instead, she sits with Damien's jacket still around her, watching the sun rise over the neighboring apartment buildings. Her phone buzzes with a news alert, the notification lighting up the screen on the cushion beside her. Normally, she might ignore it and check later, but something in the headline catches her eye. 6 men reported missing overnight in separate incidents across city. Police suspect connection. Kate's pulse quickens. She taps the alert with shaking fingers and opens the article, eyes racing over the details. 6 men, all in their late 20s to mid-30s, have been reported missing in the early hours of this morning. Among them is Preston Caldwell, son of New York Senator Richard Caldwell, along with 2 of his associates and 3 other men, names withheld pending investigation. Sources say security footage from various locations around the city captured each man leaving establishments between midnight and 2 a.m., after which they vanished without a trace. NYPD spokespersons have given no official statement on whether the disappearances are linked, but off the record, some investigators suspect a coordinated effort. Families of the missing men have been contacted, and at least one prominent family is expected to hold a press conference later today. The article continues, but Kate doesn't need to read more. Her phone slips from her grasp for the second time that night. 6 men, Preston and 2 of his buddies, surely, and 3 others, perhaps bystanders, accomplices, or simply whoever Damien deemed complicit by association. 6 men gone, vanished in one night like ghosts. A shaky exhale leaves her lungs. She should be horrified, should be reaching for her phone to call the police, to make statements, to do the right thing. But she does none of those things, because what she feels in this moment isn't horror, it's satisfaction, deep, quiet satisfaction and a bone-deep sense of safety. Her phone begins to ring again, startling her out of her thoughts. The caller ID shows a blocked number. Kate's heart leaps into her throat. She has a feeling she knows exactly who it is. Steeling herself, she answers. "Hello?" There's a short pause, then a familiar, rich voice comes through, as calm and polite as if this were a business call. "Kate." Just her name, and it sends a warmth coursing through her that has nothing to do with the morning sunlight. I hope I didn't wake you, Damien continues evenly. She wets her lips. I wasn't sleeping, she replies, equally soft. Her voice is steadier than she expected. Good. A pause as if he's considering his next words. I wanted you to know, you don't need to worry anymore. Kate presses the phone tighter to her ear, her pulse racing. The people who hurt you, Damien says in that controlled, conversational tone, won't be a problem. They won't be anyone's problem ever again. He says it so simply. Not a problem, ever again, just like that. As if discussing the weather or a minor staffing change. Kate closes her eyes. For a moment, neither of them speaks. She thinks of Preston's cruel grin, the way he'd pinned her arms. She thinks of the fear she'd felt, the helplessness. She thinks of 6 missing men. She should ask what he did. She should care that something unspeakable likely happened between midnight and dawn at Damien's command. But instead, a different question trembles on her tongue. Did they suffer? She whispers. Another pause. When Damien speaks again, there's a shift in his voice. Surprise, perhaps. Would it matter to you if they did? Yes. Kate's answer comes out in a low, raw rasp. There's no point in pretending otherwise, not to him. I want to know if they were afraid, if they felt even a fraction of what they made me feel. On the other end of the line, Damien releases a breath. When he answers, something dark and satisfied coils through his words. They were very afraid. His tone drops to a lethal purr. I made sure of it, Kate. They knew exactly what was happening to them, and exactly why. Kate's eyes sting, but not from sorrow. It's a fierce, unexpected wave of vindication washing through her. The last of the tension she didn't realize she was still carrying slips from her shoulders. Good, she whispers. The word trembles with emotion. Good. There's silence, save for the distant hum of the city waking up outside her window. When Damien speaks again, that iron control of his falters, revealing something underneath. Don't thank me, he says roughly, as if sensing the gratitude welling up in her chest. I didn't do it for a thank you. Then why did you? She asks softly. It's a dangerous question, but she needs to hear the answer. He's quiet for a long moment. She can almost picture him wherever he is. Perhaps in his penthouse study, phone pressed to his ear, jaw clenched as he weighs telling her the truth. When he does speak, his voice is hushed, the words raw, because the thought of anyone hurting you, of someone else touching you, made me want to burn this entire city to the ground. Kate's breath catches in her throat. Her heart is thundering so loud she's sure he can hear it over the phone. Damien, she manages, but she doesn't even know what to say. He just admitted, what exactly? That he cares for her? That her pain moved him to orchestrate something out of a nightmare? That he'd commit atrocities for her? Come back to work when you're ready, he says quietly. Gentler now. Take longer if you need, whatever you need, a beat of hesitation. But when you do return, Kate, I need to know. Are you afraid of me now? The question hangs between them, heavy and loaded. She realizes this is it. This is the moment that will either strengthen the fragile bond forged between them last night, or shatter it entirely. Her gaze drifts to the jacket around her shoulders, to the sunlight glinting off one of its gold buttons. She thinks of everything he's done in the last few hours. The violence he unleashed, the promises he's made, the care he showed. And all she can think of is how gently he touched her face, how he made her feel safe when she should have been terrified. No, Kate says, the answer coming from somewhere deep and sure inside her. I'm not afraid of you, Damien. She hears the faint sound of his exhale. Almost a sigh, almost a laugh. Relief, tempered with something like satisfaction. You should be, he murmurs, but he doesn't sound disappointed. In fact, he almost sounds pleased. Rest, Kate. We'll talk soon. Before she can respond, the line disconnects. Kate lowers the phone slowly. The morning light fills her tiny living room. She leans her head back against the couch, Damien's jacket still wrapped around her like a protective cocoon. She ought to feel conflicted. Maybe she will later, but right now she feels more at peace than she has in, maybe forever. 3 days later, Kate steps through the doors of Blackwell & Sons' Manhattan headquarters, her stomach performing anxious little flips. She'd chosen a high-collared blouse that conceals the faint yellow-green remnants of the bruises on her neck and chest, and styled her hair carefully to cover the healing cut above her temple. With some concealer and powder, the bruise on her cheekbone is barely visible. Physically, she looks almost like her old self. Inside, the luxurious lobby buzzes with the Monday morning energy of a major corporation, but as soon as she swipes her badge, an alert must trigger. The security guard at the desk gestures politely. "Ms. Bennett? Mr. Blackwell asked that you go up to see him the moment you arrived." "Oh," Kate says, caught off guard. She'd expected to ease back into work quietly, maybe tackle some email, anything to avoid immediate heavy conversations. "Sure, thank you." Her heels click on polished marble as she heads to the private elevator. The ride up to the executive floor feels surreal. She hasn't spoken to Damien since that dawn phone call, aside from a brief text exchange where she informed Frank she'd be returning on Monday, and Frank replied with a thumbs-up emoji, an oddly charming choice for the stoic man. Now, as the elevator doors open directly into the top-floor foyer, Kate's heart kicks into a gallop. Frank is there waiting for her. "Good morning, Miss Bennett," he greets, straightening from where he'd been leaning against the wall with his phone. "Mr. Blackwell is expecting you. Go right in." "Thank you, Frank." She offers him a small smile, which he returns with a polite dip of his head. Taking a deep breath, Kate opens the heavy double doors to Damien's office. It's an impressive space, designed more like the study of a wealthy aristocrat than a modern CEO's office. Floor-to-ceiling windows present a sweeping view of the city skyline and the Hudson beyond. The furnishings are dark wood and rich leather, the walls adorned with a few pieces of abstract art and one large portrait of Damien's late father. The air carries a faint scent of leather and Damien's signature cologne. He stands with his back to her, gazing out at the city below. He's wearing a charcoal gray suit today, tailored to his powerful frame, and even from behind he looks every inch the billionaire mogul, refined, dangerous, in control. Hearing her enter, he speaks without turning. "Close the door." Kate obeys, clicking it shut. Her palms suddenly feel sweaty. Her heart is doing that little stuttering thing again at the mere sight of him. Damien turns slowly to face her. The morning sun pours in from behind him, limning his tall form in golden light. For a moment, she's struck by the image of him. A dark silhouette against the brilliance of day, like some avenging angel or perhaps a fallen one. His gaze finds her, and the intensity there makes her breath catch. There's a hunger in his eyes, the kind that sends a flush creeping up her neck. She's never seen him look at anyone like that, let alone her. "Good morning," she manages, her voice coming out softer than she intended. She hopes he can't see her knees trembling from across the room. Damien's lips curve, not into a smile exactly, but the edges soften. "How are you feeling?" She steps forward cautiously. "Better. Healing." She touches her side absently. "Ribs still ache a bit, but I'll be okay." He nods approvingly, then gestures to one of the leather chairs in front of his massive mahogany desk. "Sit, please." Kate perches on the edge of the chair, while Damien rounds the desk and leans casually against its front, just a few feet away from her. The position is informal, but there's a tension in his body she can sense. There's a file folder in his hand. He holds it up slightly. "These are reports from this weekend." She tenses, mind jumping to Preston. "Reports? Police reports?" He must see the flicker of alarm in her eyes, because he almost smiles. "Not from the authorities," he says. "From my people." With a nonchalance that belies the seriousness of the topic, Damien opens the folder and skims it. As of last night, Preston Caldwell and his associates have been officially declared missing persons. He glances up through his dark lashes to gauge her reaction. Kate swallows and nods, trying to appear unsurprised. I saw the news." "The police have no leads," he continues. "Senator Caldwell is leveraging every political connection he has, trying to find his son." Damien's mouth twists into something that might be called a smile if it weren't so cold. So far, he's come up empty. He closes the folder and sets it aside. "Some people," he murmurs, "just disappear." "Tragic, really." A shiver dances over Kate's skin at the quiet finality of his words. Tragic is delivered with cutting sarcasm. She should feel guilty, shouldn't she? 6 human beings have vanished from the face of the earth because of what was done to her. She doesn't feel guilty. Not at all. But a kernel of doubt makes her ask, "Where are they?" Damien's eyebrows lift slightly. He hadn't expected that question, perhaps. "Do you really want to know?" Kate meets his gaze. Does she? She thinks of what he'd said on the phone, how he'd made them understand exactly what they'd done wrong. A dark part of her, one she's already acknowledged, does want to know. She wants the closure, to know they are truly gone. "Yes," she says quietly. "I need to know if I should feel guilty for being glad they're gone, if that makes me a terrible person." In 3 strides, Damien is in front of her. He moves so fast and suddenly that she startles, but then he's sinking to one knee on the carpet, bringing his face level with hers as she sits in the chair. He's so close she can see the subtle shadow of stubble on his jaw, the individual gold flecks in his blue irises. "Kate," he says gently, and there's an urgency in his tone. "Look at me." Her pulse flutters. She does as commanded, losing herself in his gaze. "They're alive," he says, "barely, and they're in places far from here, where very powerful people will ensure they're never heard from again." His hand comes up, slowly as if not to startle her, and cups her cheek with that same impossible gentleness he showed in the closet. His thumb strokes once, a soft glide over her healed lip. "They will spend every remaining day of their miserable lives remembering what they did to you, and knowing that's why they're where they are. They will never be free. They will never hurt anyone. Ever again." Kate's eyes flutter shut as relief crashes through her. It's done. Truly, irrevocably done. A weight she didn't realize she was still carrying lifts from her shoulders. "Does that make me awful?" she whispers. "That I'm not sorry? That I feel safe because of what you did?" His thumb tilts her chin up slightly. "Open your eyes," he murmurs. She obeys, finding him watching her with an expression that borders on reverent. "Awful?" Damien repeats, and there's a dangerous gleam in his eyes now. "No, Kate, it makes you honest." She leans just a fraction into his palm. "I feel safe," she breathes. "For the first time since it happened, I feel truly safe. Because of you." Heat flares in his eyes, something intense and hungry. "Dangerous answer," he growls softly. Her heart skitters. Not with fear. No, with something entirely different. Her gaze flicks over his face, the hard planes of it, the softness reserved only for her. "Why?" she asks, voice barely audible over the sudden roaring in her ears. "Because now I know I was right about you." His hand slides from her cheek to the nape of her neck, fingers threading into her hair. He's still holding himself carefully, as if she might break, but there's a barely restrained fervor in his touch. "I suspected the moment I saw you in that closet, covered in bruises and still trying to stand tall. I knew you were fearless, that you were like me." He leans in, just inches from her lips, his breath fanning warm across her skin. "And I knew that once I had a taste of that fearlessness, once I saw you looking at me like you are right now, like I'm not a monster, I wouldn't be able to let you go." Kate's breathing hitches. Her hands move of their own accord, one finding purchase on his broad shoulder, the other fisting in the fabric of his dress shirt for stability. What do you mean? A taste?" Instead of answering with words, Damien closes that last bit of distance. His lips brush hers, softly at first, a question asked in silence. Kate answers by surging forward, pressing her mouth fully to his. The kiss ignites like gasoline on a spark. Damien makes a low, deep sound in his throat, a sound that makes Kate's toes curl in her pumps. And then his arm snakes around her waist, pulling her off the chair and against him. It's not a gentle kiss. It's bruising and desperate and perfect. Kate pours everything she has into it, all the terror and gratitude and longing and confusion of the past few days, and Damien meets her with equal fervor. His mouth claims hers with a kind of possessive hunger that leaves her dizzy. She tastes a hint of coffee on his tongue when it sweeps past her lips, and something distinctly him, dark and addictive. She doesn't know how they end up moving, but suddenly Kate finds her back pressed to the cool glass of the floor-to-ceiling window. Damien pins her there, careful to keep some of his weight off her, but she hooks her arms around his neck and pulls him closer. His thigh nudges between her legs slightly, and she gasps into his mouth at the friction of the motion. Some distant, still rational part of Kate's mind marvels. I'm making out with Damien Blackwell in his office. If any of her co-workers walked in, but she doesn't care. Let them see, she thinks wildly. Let the whole world see who she belongs to now. They finally break apart, both breathing hard. Damien's forehead drops to hers, his eyes closed as if he's regaining control. Kate's lips tingle. She's sure they're red and swollen from the intensity of that kiss. Kate. He whispers her name like a prayer and a curse all at once. She opens her eyes to find him staring at her with such raw emotion, it steals what little breath she has left. Mine, he rasps, the single word rough. Say it. Kate's heart twists, and she realizes in this moment how deeply he needs her affirmation. She cups his face between her hands, marveling a bit at the contrast of her small fingers against his strong jaw. I'm yours, she says without a flicker of doubt. Something like triumph flashes across Damien's features. He turns his head just enough to press a fervent kiss to one of her palms. And I'm yours, he vows, his blue eyes burning into hers. Every vicious, ugly, dangerous part of me belongs to you now. A shudder of pure feeling tears through her at the promise in his voice. His hand splays possessively over her hip. No one will ever lay a finger on you again, he growls. No one will hurt you. No one will even look at you the wrong way without answering to me. Understand? A thrill dances down Kate's spine at the fierce protectiveness in his words. Protected and cherished. She knows without a doubt that's exactly what she is, and will be at his side. Understood, she murmurs. For a long moment they simply breathe together, foreheads touching, her hands still cradling his face as if to keep him there, to confirm he's real, and this is real. She traces her thumb lightly along his cheekbone. He closes his eyes at the touch, leaning into her palm like a starved man seeking warmth. When his eyes open again, there's a flicker of uncertainty in them. This is fast, he admits quietly. Probably insane. You have every right to tell me we're moving too quickly. Kate huffs a soft laugh. Too quickly? In truth, her world has spun so wildly off its axis that the usual rules feel like they no longer apply. Damien! 2 days ago, I would have said you were just my boss, and I barely knew you. Now She bites off the words, not sure she's ready to voice what's really pounding in her chest. Now you what? He prompts, a tinge of vulnerability creeping into his expression. It's such a rare thing to see on him that it unravels something inside her. She slides her fingers back into his dark hair, marveling at its softness. Now I feel like I've known you forever, she says softly. Like some part of me was waiting for you to step up and be this person for me. He bows his head, resting it in the crook of her neck for a moment. She feels him inhale against her skin, as if breathing her in. I need you to know, he murmurs, lips brushing just below her ear. This isn't only about what happened to you. This isn't pity or some savior complex. He lifts his head to look at her, and she's struck again by how unguarded he is with her now. I've wanted you, Kate, for years. I was just too damn good at hiding it. A smile tugs at her sore lips. You did a pretty good job, she teases lightly. I had no idea. He groans softly and presses a chastising kiss to the corner of her mouth. I'm serious. Now that I have you, I'm not going to let you go. Her chest swells with emotion. Promise? Damien frames her face with both hands, gentle despite the size of them against her cheeks. He kisses her brow, her temple, then presses the softest kiss to her lips. I promise, he whispers. I promise I'll keep you safe. I promise I'll take care of you. I promise no one will ever make you feel small or afraid again. Kate closes her eyes as fresh tears slip down her cheeks. This time she lets them fall. They're tears of relief, of happiness, of release. When she opens her eyes again, he's watching her with something like awe, thumb catching a tear at the edge of her jaw. She sniffles and smiles. What about my job? His answering grin is quick and fierce. Keep it, quit it. Whatever you want. I have more than enough money for 10 lifetimes. You don't have to work another day if you don't want to. She arches a brow, the first hints of her old sass creeping back. That's sweet, but I like working. I'm not looking to be a kept woman, Damien. He chuckles, genuine mirth lighting up his features. I'd expect nothing less. He brushes a strand of hair behind her ear. Fine, keep working then. Hell, you can have a controlling stake in the company if you want. I'll sign over whatever you... She stops him with another kiss, laughing against his lips. You don't have to hand me your company, just let me keep my independence, even if I'm completely and utterly yours. Damien rests his forehead against hers, smiling now. A real smile that softens his entire face in a devastating way. See, this is why you're dangerous, he murmurs. Most people in my life just say yes to everything. You challenge me. I'm not most people, she replies, echoing his earlier words. His eyes spark at that. No, you certainly are not. He kisses her again, slowly this time, as if savoring the reality of her in his arms. Kate melts into him, pouring all the unspoken things into the slide of her mouth against his, the curl of her fingers at the nape of his neck. They eventually part, both a little dazed and smiling like fools. Damien steps back reluctantly, smoothing a thumb over her swollen lower lip with pride at having caused that. We should probably get you off your feet, he says, noticing the way she shifts a bit uncomfortably. You're still recovering. Kate only then registers the dull ache in her ribs. Adrenaline and desire had masked it. I'm okay. He gives her a look, that stern, protective look that brooks no argument. But there's affection in it too. Humor me. So she allows him to lead her to the plush sofa in the corner of his office. Once she's seated, he kneels again. The second time he's been on his knees for her today. A thought that sends a thrill through her, and carefully lifts her leg to take off her heels one by one. Damien! She chides, half embarrassed, half touched beyond belief. He smirks up at her. I have to take care of my girl, don't I? Her girl. The words fizz delightfully through her veins. Shoes aside, he stands and shrugs off his suit jacket. Stay put. He disappears for a moment through a side door. She hears the sound of a small fridge opening. He returns with a chilled bottle of water and an ice pack. Handing her the water, he places the ice pack gently against her still bruised cheek. She holds it in place, gratitude swelling. Who would believe it? Damien Blackwell, reputed villain of Manhattan, tending to her like a doting partner. Comfortable? He asks softly, sitting down beside her and draping an arm over the back of the couch. Not quite touching her, but close. Kate nods. Her heart feels impossibly full. I am. Thank you. He smiles then, as if unable to resist, closes that inch of space and pulls her against his chest. She goes willingly, nestling into him. Carefully, he tucks her head under his chin, mindful of her sore cheek. One of his hands rubs slow circles on her back, and she realizes that yes, she's comfortable. She's more than comfortable, she's euphoric. Time seems to stop in that peaceful moment. 3 months later, the early spring sun is warm on Kate's shoulders as she steps into the courtyard garden of the Somerset Rehabilitation Center, a private facility upstate where her mother has been receiving top-of-the-line care. In her arms, she carries a bouquet of cheerful daisies and lavender, her mom's favorites. She spots her mother sitting on a bench near a rose bush, face tilted toward the sun, eyes closed in contentment. The sight brings a rush of emotion. Her mother looks healthier than she has in years. Her normally pallid skin holds a bit of a glow, and she's put on some much-needed weight. Gone is the weary, pain-laced expression she used to wear constantly. Mom, Kate calls softly as she approaches. Her mother, Helen Bennett, opens her eyes and breaks into a broad smile. Katie! She greets, using the pet name that Kate only tolerates from her. Helen starts to push herself up, but Kate quickly reaches her and places a gentle hand on her shoulder. Stay, Kate insists. We can sit. She hands over the bouquet, and Helen brings it to her nose, inhaling deeply. Oh, these are lovely, thank you. Kate takes a seat beside her on the bench. They spend a few minutes chatting about Helen's morning physical therapy session and a craft project she's been doing with some other residents. Finally, Helen turns to her daughter, eyes shining. The doctors have been amazed at my progress, she says, voice trembling with happiness. They're even using the word remission. Can you believe it? They think I might be in full remission soon, if I'm not already. Kate feels tears of joy prick her eyes. She clutches her mom's hand. That's incredible, Mom. A laugh bubbles out of her. Full remission. I always knew you'd kick cancer's butt. Helen chuckles wetly. I couldn't have done any of this without the new treatments. The ones we couldn't afford before. She squeezes Kate's hand. That donor, the one who paid for everything. Do you know who it is? Kate bites her lip, trying to contain the smile threatening to break free. She absently twirls the modest but elegant ring on her left hand, a habit she's picked up in the last 6 weeks since a certain someone placed it there. A stunning sapphire flanked by diamonds. Damien hadn't wanted to wait long to propose. He'd done it one quiet evening in his penthouse. No grand public gestures, just raw intensity as he got down on one knee in front of her, hands shaking ever so slightly as he asked her to marry him. She'd said yes before he'd even finished speaking. I do know, Kate answers her mother softly. He prefers to stay anonymous to others, but yes, I know him. Her mother's eyes narrow slightly in that way only mothers can manage. He must care for you very much, this mystery man. Kate's smile cannot be contained now. He's not a mystery to me. And he does. Care for me. More than anything, she adds silently. Helen rubs her thumb over Kate's engagement ring, which glitters in the sunlight. Is he a good man, Katie? Ah, the question. Kate gazes at the ring, thinking of the man who gave it to her. How to answer that? Is Damien Blackwell a good man? He's my man, she replies carefully, lifting her eyes to meet her mother's. That's all that matters to me. Helen considers her daughter's face, then smiles and pats her hand. If he's your man, then I trust your judgment. I can't wait to meet him. Kate's stomach flutters at the thought. Damien has offered many times to come out here with her, but she wanted to have this remission news first, before introducing the hurricane that is Damien into her mother's calm sphere. Soon, she thinks, very soon. They spend another hour together before a nurse comes to take Helen to her next appointment. Kate hugs her mom goodbye, heart buoyant with hope. This is what happily ever afters feel like, she muses on the drive back to the city. Not perfect, not without scars, but life finally moving in the right direction. She arrives at the Blackwell estate, her estate now in a way. After their engagement, Damien had insisted she make her home with him. She'd been stubborn at first about keeping her little apartment, but honestly, she spends almost every night at his place anyway. These days, her old apartment is mostly just occupied by boxes of her things waiting to be moved. The estate, a sprawling property just outside the city, is hosting a small flurry of activity today. As Kate steps out of the car, she sees white chairs being arranged in rows in the garden, and a trellis being adorned with fresh flowers. There's a sense of restrained urgency in the staff's movements. Everything must be perfect. Tomorrow is her wedding day. The thought sends a jolt of excitement and nerves through her. In just 24 hours, she'll be walking down that aisle towards Damien. She finds him exactly where she expected, in his study, finalizing a business matter over the phone. He finishes up as she enters, setting the phone down and opening his arms. She goes to him gladly, melting into his embrace, mindful of a half-dozen flower sample boards scattered across his desk for her approval. How's your mom? He asks, kissing the top of her head. Kate beams up at him. They said the R word. His eyes light up. Remission? She nods, and he sweeps her into a tight hug, laughing into her hair. That's the best news I've heard in, well, possibly ever. Thank you, she whispers, emotion clogging her throat as she buries her face against his chest. He tilts her chin up gently. For what? For giving me this future, she murmurs. For giving her a future. His expression softens. You two are my family now. Of course I'd take care of her. Family? The word wraps around her heart. She presses up on her toes and kisses him sweetly, tasting the happiness on both their lips. The night before their wedding passes in a blur of last-minute preparations and quiet anticipation. Damien had objected to the tradition of sleeping apart. We live together. This is ridiculous, he'd complained. But Kate had playfully insisted. Just a few hours of suspense, she'd teased. Think you can handle it, tough guy? He'd growled, but relented, though not before pinning her to the mattress for one last passionate kiss that left her breathless and craving tomorrow, when they'd no longer have any reason to be apart. Ever. And now the day is here, a small, private ceremony, just as they wanted. Close friends, a phrase Kate would not have associated with Damien months ago. But he'd surprised her. He does have a handful of people he trusts, beyond Frank and his inner circle, who have flown in for the wedding. Helen sits in the front row, dabbing happily at her eyes already as the string quartet begins Pechelbel's canon. Kate steps out into the back garden on her cue, and a hush falls. All heads turn to her, but she sees only one person. Damien stands at the end of the aisle, wearing a classic black tux that fits him like sin. But it's his face that holds her captive. The pride, the adoration, the sheer emotion in his eyes as he watches her approach. The late afternoon sun filters through the arbor of wisteria overhead, casting dappled light on the stone pathway. To Kate, though, it's as if a spotlight shines only on the man waiting for her. Each step she takes toward him is filled with certainty. He takes her hands as soon as she reaches him, unable to wait even for the officiant's prompt. Under his breath, only for her, Damien whispers, "Last chance to run." Kate's lips curve into a tiny private smile. In a low voice only he can hear, she replies, "I'm exactly where I want to be." And because she can't resist, she adds in a whisper, "With a man who might be a monster to everyone else, but who made me feel safe when I was at my most vulnerable. With the man who made 6 people disappear because they hurt me." Damien's grip on her hands tightens almost imperceptibly, but his eyes blaze. Kate continues, voice trembling with emotion. "With the man who paid my mother's medical bills and still asks for my opinion on everything. Who holds me every night like I'm precious. Yes, Damien, I'm exactly where I want to be. With you." His eyes close for the briefest moment as if absorbing her words. When they open, there's a sheen of moisture there that he doesn't bother hiding. The officiant begins the ceremony, but for Kate and Damien time seems to bend. They exchange vows, simple promises spoken from the heart. Damien's voice wavers only once when he says, "You saved me, Kate. In every way a man can be saved," causing Kate's breath to catch on a sob as she mouths, "I love you" to him, and then the rings, and the pronouncement that they are now husband and wife. "You may kiss—" The officiant barely finishes before Damien has his bride in his arms. He kisses her deeply, uncaring of the audience, pouring all the love and passion and fervor of months, years, really, into the meeting of their lips. Applause and laughter swell around them, but they might as well be alone in the world. He rests his forehead against hers afterward, both of them breathless and smiling. "Mrs. Blackwell," he murmurs reverently. She likes the way it sounds. She didn't plan on taking his name, but in this moment she wants that tangible connection with him. "Hi," she whispers, giggling softly at her own inane greeting. He chuckles, eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hi." They turn to face their family and friends, hand in hand, the world awash in golden late-day sunlight and hope. The intimate reception that follows is held under a sprawling white tent set up in the garden. Twinkle lights hang in graceful swoops, and centerpieces of white roses and blue hydrangeas dot the elegantly set tables. Kate is making the rounds, hugging her mother, laughing with a friend from work who was invited, when she notices a disturbance at the perimeter of the event. Frank and 2 other security staff step forward as a trio of unexpected figures stride into the tent. Her stomach clenches when she recognizes the broad, bullish form of Senator Richard Caldwell, flanked by 2 stern-faced men who scream, "Bodyguard." The senator's eyes zero in on the head table where Damien stands, talking to his cousin. Kate moves on instinct, intercepting Damien just as Caldwell arrives at their table. Damien immediately shifts her behind him protectively, his entire posture changing from relaxed groom to dangerous predator in a split second. "Caldwell," Damien says in an icy greeting, "I don't recall inviting you." The tent has fallen silent. Guests shrink back, sensing the crackle of confrontation in the air. Senator Caldwell's face is ruddy with barely controlled rage. "We need to talk, Blackwell," he grates out. "Now." "No," Damien replies coolly. "We really don't." The senator's eyes flick to Kate, taking in her white dress and the gentle hand Damien has placed at her waist. "My son is gone," Caldwell spits, spittle gathering at the corners of his mouth. "Vanished without a trace, and I know damned well you had something to do with it." Kate feels a jolt of fear for just a heartbeat. This man is powerful, and he's beyond angry. But the fear doesn't take root, because Damien is by her side, calm and unflinching. "This is my wedding day," Damien says, voice low but carrying, every syllable laced with warning. And this is my wife. His grip on Kate's waist firms, a public claiming. She lifts her chin, standing tall beside him. Caldwell sneers. You think a ring and some vows change anything? You think that protects you? You can't just— I can. Damien interrupts, voice like a whip crack. And I did. A collective gasp goes around the tent at the implication. Caldwell's face darkens to an alarming shade of red. If you've hurt my son, you'll what? Damien challenges, stepping forward just a fraction. Frank and the other security close in subtly, hands near their holsters. Have me arrested? Killed, please, do try. But understand this. He leans forward, eyes glinting with lethal promise. If you ruin even one moment of this day for my wife, Senator, I will personally ensure you join Preston in whatever hellhole he's in. And that's a promise. Caldwell's bodyguards react to the threat, one reaching into his jacket, maybe for a weapon, maybe a phone. But they immediately find themselves facing the barrels of several guns as Frank and his men materialize around them. The guests who aren't already standing scurry back with startled cries. Kate notices her mother being gently guided behind a table by one of the Blackwell security team, shielding her. Her heart hammers. It's one thing to know what Damien is capable of in theory. It's another to see him stare down a U.S. senator at their wedding without a hint of fear. He's outnumbered in terms of political power here, but it doesn't matter. Damien owns this moment. The senator seems to realize it too. His eyes dart around, evaluating the dozen men poised to strike at Damien's command. He might be able to make legal hell for them later, but right here, right now, he would not leave this tent alive if it came to that. Caldwell's gaze lands on Kate. He sneers. You have no idea what kind of devil you've married, young lady. Kate steps forward to stand beside Damien, lacing her fingers tightly with her husband's. She lifts her chin at Caldwell. Actually, I know exactly who I married, and I'm not afraid of him. You should be. A flicker of uncertainty crosses the senator's features, clearly not the response he expected. With nothing left to do or say, he settles for spitting out. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Damien says softly. You just don't know it yet. Caldwell glares, but with his goons effectively neutralized and no more cards to play, he turns on his heel and storms away, his men following. Frank nods to his team, and they trail the uninvited guests to ensure they actually leave the property. Within seconds, the worst of the tension is broken. The string quartet, perhaps on cue from someone, tentatively begins playing again to ease the awkward silence that had fallen. Damien turns immediately to Kate, concern etched on his face. Are you okay? She takes a deep breath. To her own surprise, she is. I'm fine. And she is because she has him. He cups her face in front of everyone, scanning her eyes. I'm sorry, he murmurs sincerely. That was unexpected, she finishes with a small grin. And strangely satisfying. His brows arch. She shrugs, lowering her voice for him alone. Now everyone who matters knows exactly how far you'll go for me. And I love them knowing that. Knowing I'm yours and you're mine. And nothing will ever change that. For a heartbeat, Damien just stares at her. Then a dark, delighted laugh rumbles from his chest. He wraps an arm around her and pulls her tight against him. Have I told you today that you're a dangerous woman? Kate laughs. I learned from the best. His eyes sparkle at that. He presses a kiss to her temple. Dance with me, Mrs. Blackwell. It's not a request. He leads her to the dance floor as the quartet shifts seamlessly into a slow, romantic piece. As they sway together, Kate allows herself a moment to truly absorb everything. A few months ago, she was just an overworked event planner worried about bills and an ailing mother, living a careful life and never making waves. Now she's the wife of a man who is both feared and respected in equal measure, a man who holds her like she's his entire world. She feels Damien's hand settle at the small of her back, warm and solid, through the delicate lace of her gown. He holds one of her hands against his chest. Underneath her palm, she can feel the steady, strong beat of his heart. What are you thinking about? He asks softly, leaning down to speak near her ear. Kate smiles, resting her head against his shoulder as they continue to turn slowly under the twinkling lights. How far I've come, she admits. How far we've come. He pulls back slightly to look at her. Any regrets? She lets out a soft breath, meeting his gaze with all the love she feels. "I'd do it all again," she says. Damien's eyes darken, a flash of heat there. He knows exactly what she means, that she'd endure the pain and fear again if it led her here, to him. "Don't say things like that," he growls quietly, though there's a teasing edge in his voice. "Why not?" she asks, arching a brow. "Because it makes me want to hunt down Richard Caldwell and toss him into whatever hole his son is in, too. For even thinking of crashing our wedding." Kate giggles. She can't help it. She leans up and presses a quick kiss to his lips, right there in front of everyone. "You're insatiable," she teases. "For you? Absolutely," he chuckles, low and deep. "You've officially turned me into a happily married man. The world won't know what to do with me now," she grins. "They'll figure it out. Or not, who cares?" He laughs again, a genuinely carefree sound that she's heard more and more often as they've built their life together. It's a beautiful sound. As the sun sinks lower in the sky, painting it with hues of pink and orange, they continue to dance. Kate catches sight of her mother dancing with Frank, who, as it turns out, is an excellent waltzer, and several of Damien's stoic associates attempting to hide smiles as their wives drag them to the floor as well. The whole scene is perfect and surreal. Kate looks up into her husband's face. The last rays of sunlight catch in his blue eyes, making them shine almost silver. He's never looked more handsome, or more at peace. "I love you, Damien," she whispers, just because she wants to say it and have him hear it again. His hand at her back presses her closer. "I love you too, Kate, always." In the safety of his arms, Kate lets herself fully relax. This is what safety truly means, she realizes. Not the absence of danger. There will always be threats in this world. But the presence of someone who will stand between you and that danger. Someone who will hold you up when you can't stand on your own. Someone who will demand, "Who the fuck did this to you?" and not rest until they've made it right. Someone who will bring even the mightiest of evildoers to their knees before letting them harm a hair on your head. Someone who will go to any length, cross any line, and fear no consequence as long as it's for you. Kate has found that someone. She's found her person. Her monster-turned guardian. Her dark knight in bespoke armor. She's found the man who brushed aside morality and law just to defend her. And somehow, in his fierce devotion, taught her that it's okay to let someone else be strong for her, that she doesn't always have to carry the weight alone. As Damien twirls her one last time and pulls her back to him with that familiar possessive heat in his gaze, Kate Claire Blackwell knows with unwavering certainty that she is exactly where she belongs. In the arms of a monster who chose to be gentle for her, with a killer who showed her that trust can conquer fear, with the man who made her feel safe, cherished, and undeniably loved.